Are you ready to confront the realities of a true survival situation? When disaster strikes and SHTF, stuff hits the fan. Many people assume that joining a prepper group is the ultimate way to ensure safety and sustainability. But what if I told you that most prepper groups are likely to collapse under the pressure of a real crisis? From internal conflicts to lack of proper leadership or inadequate preparation, the challenges of group dynamics often go overlooked until it's too late. In this video, we'll explore the critical weaknesses that plague many prepper groups and why they may not live up to expectations when the world as we know it falls apart. Stick around to uncover the common mistakes survival groups make and learn how you can prepare yourself and your loved ones to thrive, even if the system around you collapses. Let's get started. 1. The reality of prepper groups. Prepper groups often sell the dream of being a united front in the face of crisis. The fantasy is this idealistic image of people banding together with a common goal of survival, fueled by mutual trust and teamwork. However, the brutal reality is far less picturesque. When the proverbial reality is far less picturesque, many prepper groups will crumble under the weight of human flaws such as ego, drama, and outright selfishness. The truth is, people are unpredictable, especially during a crisis. When survival is at stake, even the most trustworthy individuals can betray others for their own gain. Resources like food, water, and medical supplies quickly become bargaining chips, and alliances often give way to competition as scarcity tightens its grip. Instead of the teamwork often glorified in the prepper community, these groups devolve into a collection of self-serving individuals vying for control, status, or simply survival. Another reason prepper groups collapse is because trust, a vital component for any community, is incredibly fragile during a survival scenario. It doesn't take much for trust to disintegrate. A perceived slight, a single act of favoritism, or the suspicion that someone is hoarding resources can spark division and resentment. Once trust is broken, chaos follows. People splinter off, creating smaller, less effective factions, or worse, turn against one another completely. Egos are another ticking time bomb in these groups. Leaders emerge, but not everyone is willing to be led, especially when resources are critical and decisions carry life or death consequences. Power struggles, jealousy, and mismanagement can all lead to infighting. A group that once worked together can implode in a flash once leadership is questioned, undermined, or outright defied. Finally, prepping attracts all kinds of people, not all of whom have altruistic intentions. Some join groups as a fallback survival plan but have no loyalty to the team. Others come in with unrealistic expectations or aren't prepared to pull their weight. When the stress of real-world survival exposes these flaws, the burden on the group becomes too much. Instead of being a unified front, the group becomes dead weight dragging itself down. The harsh truth is that survival isn't just about supplies and skills. It's about psychology and the ability to work together under unimaginable pressure. For most prepper groups, the cracks will show when stress is highest, right when survival matters most. And when those cracks appear, collapse is inevitable. 2. The importance of vetting members. When it comes to prepping, the people you choose to rely on will either make or break your group's success. The importance of vetting members cannot be overstated, because your survival could very well depend on the decisions you make before a crisis hits. A prepper group is only as strong as its collective foundation, and that foundation is built on trust, loyalty, and competency. A single weak link, whether it's someone who cannot be trusted, lacks critical skills, or folds under pressure, can compromise the entire group when things go sideways. One of the biggest mistakes prepper groups make is prioritizing numbers over quality. More people don't automatically equal more strength. In fact, poor vetting can lead to more problems than solutions. That friend who casually said they'd show up during an emergency? That's not enough. You need people who are not just dependable, but also willing to pull their weight, even in the most extreme circumstances. Without thorough vetting, your group could unknowingly admit individuals who are lazy, selfish, or worse, capable of betrayal when resources get scarce. Don't think that just because someone you've known for years claims they're on board, that they won't turn around and act in their own interest when SHTF. Desperation changes people, and usually not for the better. Vetting isn't just about trustworthiness either. Skills, mentality, and compatibility matter just as much. Can this person contribute something valuable to the group? Are they mentally prepared for stress, chaos, and tough decisions? Adding someone who is unprepared, overly dependent, or emotionally unstable is essentially putting a ticking time bomb in your operations. Don't make excuses for people who aren't ready to adapt or learn. The reality is, most prepper groups will collapse because they haven't taken the time to weed out the ones who will inevitably drag everyone else down. Optimism and blind faith have no place here. Vet every member like your life depends on it, because it does. When resources are limited, tensions are high, and every decision matters, the last thing you want is someone sabotaging your efforts. It's harsh, but survival isn't about coddling feelings. Someone isn't a strong fit, cut them loose before it's too late. 3. The need for clear leadership. One of the primary reasons most prepper groups will fall apart when SHTF is the lack of clear and effective leadership. Leadership isn't just a nice-to-have when the stakes are high, it's essential for survival. Without it, chaos is inevitable, and even the most well-stocked and well-prepared group will crumble under pressure. When there's a leadership vacuum, groups often devolve into disorder at the worst possible time. People who panic will hesitate, and hesitation in a crisis can be fatal. Without someone to step up and guide the group, arguments can erupt and critical time is lost. Even worse, power struggles can take hold, with unqualified individuals demanding control simply because they're louder or more assertive than others. This leads to tension and dissent, which will fracture the group from within, just when unity is needed the most. Decision-making is another key problem. A prepper group without a leader is a group stuck in limbo. Who decides when to bug out or hold your ground? Who takes responsibility for delegating tasks, securing supplies, or setting defensive measures? Decision paralysis can quickly leave groups exposed to external threats or internal collapse. When time is of the essence, indecision can make the difference between life and death. Effective prepper groups need a leader who embodies certain critical qualities. First and foremost, a leader must be decisive. There's no room for second-guessing or overly democratic discussions when survival is on the line. The leader also needs to inspire trust and boost morale. When things look grim, group members need to believe in someone who can steer them towards safety. Finally, the leader must stay grounded and focused. Panic or poor planning from the top will only trickle down and infect the rest of the group. The bottom line is this: most prepper groups fail because they don't plan for strong leadership. Stockpiles, gear, and skills are worthless if there's no one to coordinate and direct their use. Leadership isn't optional. It's the glue that holds everything else together, and without it, even the best prepared team is doomed to collapse under the weight of its own disorganization. 4. The role of planning and rules. One of the main reasons prepper groups collapse when SHTF is the failure to establish solid plans and enforce clear rules. Without these, the group quickly descends into chaos. Uncertainty is a breeding ground for conflict. People can't operate effectively when they don't know what's expected of them or what the next steps are. Decisions on essential tasks like allocating resources, scheduling guard rotations, or dividing responsibilities often lead to arguments and resentment when there are no rules to guide the process. Humans need structure, especially in high-stress situations, and a lack of clarity strips that away entirely. Vague or poorly thought-out plans are just as dangerous as having no plans at all. When a crisis hits and panic sets in, people need direction. If the group doesn't have a concrete plan in place, chaos takes over. Disorganization wastes precious time, ruins morale, and can lead to life-threatening mistakes. Groups lacking a predefined course of action will find themselves torn apart by indecision at the exact moment they need unity the most. All it takes is one blown decision in a critical moment to destroy trust and unravel the group. Rules, on the other hand, create fairness. Nobody wants to feel like they're the one doing all the work or being taken advantage of. When rules are clearly established and followed, they promote teamwork, fairness, and order. They also prevent freeloaders and opportunistic members from taking advantage of others. The presence of rules ensures people understand their rules and responsibilities, eliminating disputes before they arise. Rules foster an environment where members can focus on survival rather than infighting. Preparation is everything. If a group doesn't establish and agree upon its rules and plans in advance, it won't last when the pressure is on. These frameworks need to be realistic, clear, and non-negotiable. Discussions about roles, enforcement, and emergency protocols shouldn't be left until disaster strikes. It'll already be too late. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail, and in the harsh reality of a true survival situation, That failure means collapse or worse. At the end of the day, a prepper group is only as strong as its ability to organize and commit to a unified approach. Without planning and rules, they're destined to implode when it matters most. 5. The danger of unequal contribution. When it comes to survival scenarios, the biggest threat to most prepper groups isn't the external chaos, it's internal conflict. One of the primary culprits? Unequal contribution. People can talk all day about group solidarity and teamwork, but when the pressure is on, those lofty ideals crumble fast if some members start slacking while others shoulder all the work. Imbalance in effort is a poison that can destroy any group, no matter how well-intentioned it may be. All it takes is one or two people failing to pull their weight, and the resentment builds like a ticking time bomb. Picture this scenario. A handful of dedicated group members go the extra mile, securing supplies and preparing the shelter, while others sit back, complain, or disappear when it's time to do the crucial work. The message becomes clear. Some lives are valued and some aren't. That's a recipe for division. Then there's the issue of stockpiling vs. dependence. Many prepping groups are made up of individuals who've spent years gathering resources and honing crucial skills, from medical training to tactical defense. But when SHTF, these same prepared members, often find themselves exploited by those who underprepared, either due to laziness or an over-reliance on the group, the hard-working members are forced to carry the burden of others' mistakes, draining mental and physical energy that's already stretched thin. Are they supposed to just tolerate this dynamic when every resource matters? Over time, these imbalances foster breeding resentment, and that's where the group starts to fracture. Self-preservation kicks in. Why should someone continue to sacrifice their resources, health, and time for people who don't match their level of commitment? Unity disintegrates, and alliances that once seemed rock solid begin to shatter. The group loses its cohesion, and, in a survival scenario, disunity equals death. The ugly truth is this. If a group cannot maintain a culture of fairness and shared responsibility, it's doomed to fail. No one wants to admit it, but when survival is on the line, people won't tolerate freeloaders or weak links for long. Without a strict system to manage contributions and hold everyone accountable, the group might not even last a week when the real chaos begins. 6. The emotional toll of survival. When the world falls apart, emotions will run high. And that's where most prepper groups will meet their demise. Survival isn't just about stockpiles and skills. It's about managing the psychological fallout of living in constant fear, deprivation, and danger. Stress amplifies everything. The smallest disagreement can spiral into a full-blown conflict. Hunger makes people irrational. Fear clouds judgment. People you thought were dependable will suddenly snap, and people you barely trusted might completely unravel. Survival stress magnifies emotions in ways most people aren't prepared for. Frustration, anger, jealousy, and paranoia will become regular companions. One misstep, one poorly chosen word can ignite an argument that tears the group apart. Think about it. When resources are scarce and everyone is tired, you'll find out who can handle the pressure and who can't. Emotional outbursts will destabilize even the closest of groups if there's no mechanism in place to address the underlying tensions. The truth is, most people have never been truly tested emotionally. They've never faced hunger lasting more than a skipped meal, or lived in a situation where every sound could signal danger. People will act out of character under this emotional strain. A calm and collected person in normal times could become irrational and violent. Those who seemed strong on the surface might crumble when every day feels like a fight for survival. Managing the emotional toll of survival isn't just important, it's critical. If your group can't handle the mental and emotional stress, all the food and planning in the world won't matter. Clear communication, conflict resolution, and strict group discipline will have to be enforced. Leaders need to recognize emotional fractures before they break the group apart completely. Relationships and trust must be fortified before things go bad, because they'll be the first things to falter. Most prepper groups overlook this aspect entirely. They focus on tangible resources and ignore the more fragile, unpredictable variables, human emotions. And that's why they'll collapse. Individuals who can't control their emotions or who destabilize others are liabilities. Plain and simple. If you want your group to survive, the emotional toll can't be ignored. Survival is as much about keeping your head right as it is about keeping your body fed. If your group can't handle stress, don't expect it to survive when SHTF. 7. The risk of theft and hoarding. When SHTF, desperation takes over, and survival instincts can override morality, leading to theft and hoarding within prepper groups. Even among people who have prepared for emergencies, scarcity introduces a dangerous level of competitiveness. Food runs out, resources dwindle, and suddenly, people you thought you could trust might prioritize their own survival over the group's. Theft isn't just a possibility, it's inevitable in a high-stress situation. Hungry people will do whatever it takes to feed themselves or their families. This includes stealing from community supplies. It doesn't matter if the thief is a longtime friend or a newcomer. Desperation can make people do things they'd never consider in normal circumstances. A single act of theft can unravel the group, fueling anger, suspicion, and infighting. Hoarding is another major issue that destroys group cohesion. While the group relies on shared resources to survive, there will always be individuals who feel compelled to secretly stash supplies for themselves. This selfishness breeds resentment and mistrust. Once hoarding is exposed, it's no longer just about the loss of resources, it's about the betrayal. That kind of deceit spreads like wildfire, eroding the unity necessary for a group to function. The real problem lies in the loss of trust. Once trust is shattered, it's almost impossible to repair. People will start questioning everyone's motives. Who else is stealing? Am I being betrayed again? This paranoia poisons the entire group dynamic. Teamwork breaks down, and instead of facing external threats, the group turns on itself. Arguments escalate, fights break out, and sooner or later, the group collapses under the weight of its internal chaos. Without trust, a prepper group becomes just a collection of individuals fighting for survival, and that's a recipe for disaster. When SHTF, the collapse isn't just about resources or external threats. It's about people falling apart under pressure. Theft and hoarding aren't minor issues. They're symptoms of a larger problem. If your group doesn't address this potential for betrayal and desperation, you won't last. Trust must be guarded more fiercely than anything else, because without it, your group will crumble from the inside out. 8. Friendship versus skills. When SHTF, relying on friendship alone to build or maintain a prepper group, is a recipe for disaster. Too often, people assume that relationships forged through camaraderie and trust will be enough to hold a group together under the immense pressures of survival. However, the hard truth is that in a high-stakes situation, friendship won't grow crops, purify water, provide medical care, or defend the group from threat. Survival is brutal, and no amount of team building or shared history can substitute for actual skills. A lot of prepper groups fail to realize the importance of diversity in skill sets. You can't have a room full of people who are all great at brainstorming but lack the practical know-how to get things done. A group full of unskilled friends may enjoy spending time together, but they'll crumble the moment things get tough. The ultimate strength of a survival group lies in its functionality, not its personal dynamics. That requires a strategic balance between interpersonal relationships and tangible capabilities. Otherwise, when challenges like food shortages, medical emergencies, or external threats arise, the entire operation falls apart. Not everyone in a group needs to be an expert in everything, but every single member must contribute something valuable. Whether it's mechanical expertise, first aid knowledge, engineering, combat skills, or the ability to manage resources effectively, each individual should offer a survival-centric skill set. Friendship might make you feel good in a stable world, but in a survival scenario, useless members can drag the entire group down. It's essential to be brutally honest when assessing the people in your circle. Do they bring real value, or are they just warm bodies you keep around to avoid feeling lonely? Strategic selection is the key to forming a group that stands a chance when things fall apart. Vet people based on their abilities, their mindset, and their willingness to contribute. Sure, interpersonal dynamics matter to some degree, the group needs to function cohesively, but those connections must be secondary to survival skills. Groups built only on friendships inevitably collapse, because they lack the foundations necessary to weather the hardships of SHTF scenarios. When push comes to shove, survival isn't a popularity contest. Choose wisely or prepare to fail. 9. Group size matters. When it comes to survival, the size of your group can make or break your chances of making it through an SHTF scenario. A big group might sound great on paper, more people, more skills, more protection. Right? Wrong. Large groups burn through resources at an alarming rate, making them unsustainable unless you're sitting on a warehouse full of supplies. Add in the logistical nightmare of managing people, settling disputes, and keeping everyone on the same page, and suddenly your large group becomes more of a liability than an asset. Leadership struggles, resource hoarding, and internal conflicts can tear apart even the most seemingly united large group. On the flip side, small groups face their own challenges. While they're quieter and more efficient with resources, they lack the manpower to handle big threats. If you're in a small group and have multiple tasks or responsibilities piling up, like guarding supplies, finding food, and planning ahead, you might simply not have enough hands. Plus, skill diversity is often stretched thin in a small group. Sure, Bob might be a great hunter, but if no one knows how to patch up a deep cut or fix a busted water filter, your group could be in serious trouble. One injury, one mistake, and a small group could spiral fast. The key is finding the right balance, but that's easier said than done. You need enough people to cover all your bases: security, medical skills, food gathering, without overloading your resources or inviting unnecessary drama. But here's the hard truth most preppers ignore. Getting the balance right is a lot harder in practice than in theory. Most groups will collapse because they overestimate their group size, underestimate their resource consumption, or fail to account for human nature. When people are starving, tired, and scared, all those nice plans and agreements go out the window fast. At the end of the day, group size is a double-edged sword. Too big, and your group eats itself alive from within. Too small, and you risk being overrun by external threats or by your own lack of resources and skills. If you don't factor this into your planning, and I mean seriously think about it, you're just setting yourself up for failure. This isn't a game, and group size matters more than most people want to admit. 10. Building a strong survival group. When SHTF, the majority of prepper groups will collapse under the weight of poor planning, bad decision-making, and fragile group dynamics. Survival groups often fail because people underestimate the challenges of managing a team under life or meth conditions. Ego clashes, lack of accountability, and sheer unpreparedness are time bombs waiting to go off. Vetting members is the first critical step, and most groups get it wrong. Trust isn't built overnight, especially when survival's on the line. You don't want to end up depending on someone who's all talk and no action. Before a crisis hits, you need to test potential members in real-world scenarios. If they crumble under pressure or display selfish tendencies during a controlled exercise, what do you think they'll do when there are no second chances? The answer's simple. They'll be a liability, not an asset. Weed these people out early. Training together as a group isn't optional, it's essential. Not only does it create trust, but it exposes weaknesses and strengths you'll never see otherwise. Every member needs to prove their worth through consistent training. If someone doesn't show up regularly, consider it a red flag. Survival isn't about excuses. When the bullets start flying or resources run out, you'll wish you knew who had true grit and who was pretending. Defining roles and responsibilities ahead of time is non-negotiable. Without clear roles and plans, chaos and resentment will rule. Who's providing security? Who's managing food and water supplies? Who's the backup leader if the primary leader goes down? If the answers to these questions aren't locked down now, your group will devolve into infighting faster than you think. Leadership must be respected and everyone needs to pull their weight. Even with the best preparation, backup plans are vital. People will walk away, groups will split when stress peaks, members will die or betray the mission. It's not paranoia, it's reality. Have a plan for who will replace crucial roles, how decisions will be made in emergencies, and what to do if the group fails entirely. A survival group is only as strong as its weakest member. Most will fail because they ignore the brutal truth about human nature under pressure. Don't be like them. Build your group right, or be ready to go it alone.